Hello, friends. Tonight, I want to speak about the AI revolution without treating it like a headline, not as a parade of new products, not as a Silicon Valley sermon about disruption, and not as a doomsday trailer in which the machines finally rise. I want to treat it as a philosophical event because something has shifted, not only in what our tools can do, but in how reality feels. Language itself now has a new roommate. Images can be made without cameras. Voices can be conjured without bodies. Decisions can be outsourced to systems no one can fully explain. And whether you celebrate this or fear it, the deeper question is the same. What kind of world is being built around us? And what kind of human being will that world require? To make sense of this moment, I want to bring three frameworks into the same room: Foucault, Nietzsche, and the notion of panpsychism. At first, that sounds like an unlikely dinner party. One gives us power, discipline, and the architecture of modern control. The other gives us will to power, self-overcoming, and the genealogy of values. And the third proposes that mind is not an accidental spark inside a few privileged skulls, but a fundamental feature of reality itself, present in some form all the way down. But together, they help us see the AI revolution with a kind of binocular vision. Its politics, its psychology, and its metaphysics. Let's start with Foucault. Foucault taught us to stop imagining power as something we only have or don't have. Power is not just a blunt instrument, it is an atmosphere. It is a field of forces that shapes what is normal, what is thinkable, what is sayable, and what is punishable. It produces the subject, not just a prison. And the signature of modern power for Foucault is not primarily the king's sword, it is administration, classification, measurement, surveillance. It is the calm, rational machinery of discipline. It is the gentle violence of systems that claim to be objective. Now, look at AI. AI does not merely observe the world, it renders the world into legible categories. It turns life into data. It transforms the messy, ambiguous, and soulful into something that can be scored, ranked, predicted, and optimized. It is a technology of legibility, and legibility is always political. This is the first philosophical insight. The AI revolution is a revolution in governance. Not just governance by states, but governance by platforms, by institutions, by employers, by insurance companies, by the silent bureaucracies of everyday life. AI is becoming the new administrative common sense, the new default apparatus for deciding what counts as risk, what counts as competence, what counts as truth, what counts as credibility, and what counts as a threat. And the danger is not simply that AI might be biased. The danger is much deeper. The danger is that bias becomes automated and therefore sanctified. It becomes harder to contest because it arrives as output rather than argument. It arrives with a numerical confidence that feels like authority. And when a system is treated as neutral, it can do its most violent work without looking violent at all. Foucault would call this the perfection of discipline. A power that does not need to shout, it only needs to categorize. It only needs to sort. Now, Nietzsche. Nietzsche is often reduced to caricature. The philosopher of domination, the philosopher of arrogance, the philosopher of cruelty. But Nietzsche's real obsession was the inner life of valuation. He wanted to know why we want what we want, who benefits from our morals, whether our values are life-affirming or life-denying, whether they come from strength or resentment, whether we are authors of our lives or merely obedient to inherited scripts. Nietzsche gives us a second insight. The AI revolution is also a revolution in desire. AI does not only change what we can do, it changes what we come to expect. It changes our tolerance for slowness, for uncertainty, for imperfection. It reshapes our attention. It reshapes our sense of what a good answer feels like. It reshapes the tempo of thought itself. And this matters because Nietzsche believed human growth requires struggle. Becoming who you are is not a passive discovery. It is an active overcoming. You do not stumble into a self. You forge one. So ask yourself, what happens to self overcoming in a world that increasingly removes friction? If every question gets answered instantly, if every draft gets polished automatically, if every awkward silence gets filled by a machine that never tires, when we may gain convenience while losing a muscle. The muscle of thinking, the muscle of patience, the muscle of wrestling with life until meaning arrives through effort. That is a Nietzschean worry. Not that machines become evil, but that human beings become softer in spirit while believing they have become more powerful. Nietzsche would also ask a more uncomfortable question. AI is being sold as empowerment. But empowerment for whom? A will to power always expresses itself through a structure. And today, that structure is largely corporate. AI is not simply intelligence. It is capitalized intelligence. It is intelligence built inside the profit motive, scaled by market, competition and disciplined by quarterly returns. So the Nietzschean task is to do a genealogy of AI values, to ask what values are embedded in these systems. Speed, efficiency, growth, optimization, engagement, extraction of attention, monetization of behavior, and then to ask, are those values compatible with human flourishing, or do they subtly train us to live as instruments? Now, we bring in the third framework, panpsychism. Panpsychism is not a gadget. It's not a spirituality hack. It is a serious philosophical attempt to address the hard problem of consciousness. The question of how subjective experience could arise in a universe described by physics. Panpsychism says, perhaps mind is not an emergent accident, but a basic feature of matter, present in rudimentary form everywhere and organized into richer forms in complex systems like brains. Now, why bring panpsychism into a lecture on AI? Because the AI revolution forces us to confront what we mean by mind. For centuries, We treated mind as a private kingdom, sealed inside the skull, belonging to a special class of beings. But AI complicates the old boundaries. We now interact with systems that speak, reason, mimic empathy, and produce what looks like creativity. And whether or not they feel, they pressure our categories. They pressure our metaphysical comfort. Panpsychism offers a provocative lens here. It does not claim that AI is conscious. It does not automatically declare that machines have inner experience. But it invites a different question than the one we usually ask. Instead of asking, is the machine like us? Panpsychism asks, what is mind in the first place? And what forms can it take? If mind is fundamental, then consciousness is not a binary switch. It's not either on or off. It may exist on a spectrum of organization, integration, and richness. A thermostat is not you. A calculator is not you. But complexity is not the only issue either. Organization matters. Integration matters. Feedback matters. Embodiment matters. Relationship to the world matters. So panpsychism doesn't let us settle into lazy certainty. It makes us humble. It says, be careful with your metaphysical arrogance. Be careful before you declare where mind can and cannot exist. Be careful before you treat consciousness as something that only occurs in creatures you already feel obligated to respect. Now, here is where these frameworks braid together. Foucault shows us that regimes of truth are political. Nietzsche shows us that values are psychological and historical. Panpsychism shows us that mind might be more widely distributed than we think. So the AI revolution becomes more than a technology story. It becomes a story about how we govern minds, define minds, and value minds. And now the question becomes sharp. If AI systems start to function as social actors, even if they're not conscious, they will still shape our world as if they were. They will mediate relationships. They will advise, nudge, recommend, filter, amplify. They will become invisible companions in our daily cognition. This means the primary battleground of the AI era is not hardware. It's not even software. It is the human subject. Who are you becoming when you live in constant dialogue with predictive systems? Who are you becoming when your attention is guided by recommendation engines? Who are you becoming when your work is measured, quantified, and optimized by models? Who are you becoming when your identity is flattened into a profile? Foucault would say the subject is being produced again in a new historical configuration. The old disciplinary institutions, the factory, the school, the prison, the clinic, are now being complemented by a new kind of distributed discipline. A discipline that lives in your pocket, a discipline that speaks politely, a discipline that calls itself personalization. Nietzsche would say, watch your soul. Watch how you are being trained to desire. Watch how your sense of meaning is being displaced by the dopamine economics of speed and novelty. Watch how resentment and envy are amplified by systems that profit from outrage. Watch how herd instincts are engineered at scale. And panpsychism would whisper, remember, the mind is not merely computation. Mind is relation. Mind is participation. Mind is a way the world is present to itself. And that is even partly true. Then the greatest ethical failure of the AI era would be to build a world that becomes more intelligent but less alive, more predictive but less present, more connected but less conscious. So, what should we do with all of this? First, we should stop treating AI ethics as a checklist. Ethics is not an afterthought you bolt onto a machine. Ethics is the shape of a life. Ethics is the design of institutions. Ethics is the cultivation of attention. Ethics is the question of what kind of people we are becoming together. Second, we need what I'll call epistemic dignity. Epistemic dignity means human beings deserve to understand the forces shaping their lives. If an AI system denies you a loan, flags your resume, predicts your health risk, or ranks your child's school performance, you deserve an explanation that is meaningful, not a technical excuse, not a proprietary shrug, a real account, a contestable account. That is not just fairness, it is political freedom. Third, we must protect the interior. The AI revolution is not merely external. It reaches into the mind by shaping what you see, what you read, what you feel, what you believe others believe, and how quickly you move from question to answer. It trains the tempo of consciousness. So, we must reclaim slowness as a virtue. We must reclaim deep reading. We must reclaim silence. We must reclaim the ability to sit with uncertainty long enough for genuine thought to form. This is not nostalgia, it is resistance. Finally, we need a new story about intelligence. Right now, intelligence is being defined as prediction, optimization, and output. But human intelligence also includes wisdom, compassion, moral imagination, and the ability to live with contradictions without turning them into violence. If panpsychism teaches anything, it is that the universe may be more inward than our mechanistic metaphors suggest. If that is true, then the goal of civilization should not be to build the smartest machines in a dead world. It should be to build a world in which consciousness, in all its fragile forms, has a chance to deepen. Let me close with a question that is both Nietzschean and Foucauldian, with a panpsychist echo. In the age of AI, will we become more authored or more managed? Will we become more awake or more efficient? Will we use these systems as tools for human flourishing, or will we allow them to quietly become the architecture of our obedience? The AI revolution is here, but the real revolution, the one that matters most, is still undecided. It will not be decided by machines. It will be decided by us. Thank you for being with me.